Obviously, if you're a young person, you're much more willing to take risks. And, you know, what the heck? I'm a young guy. I can afford to lose some money. If I lose this, I'll just go back and make some more. I got plenty of time. Besides, I'm in a hurry. I want that Ferrari, you know? I don't want this 3%, 4% stuff. I want 20%, 30%, 40%. So the young person is more willing to take risk. And the old folks, they say, no, 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 I'm too close to the end. I can't afford to lose everything, you know? I can't go back and start all over again. So age makes a big difference. The amount of money you've already got set aside makes a big difference. If you're already pretty well taken care of, then you can be cavalier about your surplus funds. You can go for the high roller. You can become a high roller under those conditions if you're pretty well taken care of. If you're married, you got a real consideration there because your spouse had better agree with your decisions. If she doesn't, she won't wash your socks, you know. And you could get in serious trouble for that. And it could be the other way around. Sometimes the ladies have more risk tolerance than the men, although not usually. The ladies are more cautious, more intelligent than the men. The men want to get out there and get on with it. So marriage introduces an element. You have to find something that's compatible to both partners, and so forth. The risk tolerance is perhaps the bottom line. People, regardless of age, regardless of how much money they've got put away, some people just have a lower or a higher risk tolerance than others. I don't know, I've never been able to figure out what determines that, whether it's genetic or cultural or what, but I sure see the difference. For myself, I have a very high risk tolerance. In fact, I seem to get a kick out of that. I look for the things that look like they're going to have a really good payoff, you know. I guess I still think I'm 28 years old, or something like that. But that's what excites me. It gets my blood pumping. And over the years, I've really paid a serious penalty for that on a couple of occasions. But then there have been a couple of occasions where, hey, it paid off, so I'm back in the game again. So that's my story. But a lot of other people are not willing to play that game, and I'm not urging you to do so. If you don't feel comfortable with taking risks, you shouldn't consider it. You can't sleep at night because you're worried about this investment, don't make the investment. It's not good for you. Then once you've decided that you're going to make an investment and this particular option looks good to you, now you have to look at some other variables. One is the company or the venture risk. Really examine the company and the venture. Not just on the basis of what somebody says to you, and certainly not on the basis of some pundit on television telling you that, well, this stock looks like it's going to go up, this is the time to get into it. No, you've got to look at these companies yourself. You've got to examine their track record, their product, their debt ratios. You have to, again, become kind of an expert before you should put your own hard-earned money into it. Remember Akbar? That's the lesson. You've got to really become informed. The company or venture risk is determined by the management of the company. One of the reasons I like small companies for myself, and I recommend it to most people, is because you can, in fact, get to meet the managers. You can go on site, you can visit the facility, you can probably arrange an appointment to talk to the president and the vice president. You can be shown around the place and meet the staff, and you get a feeling of what's really going on inside that company. You can't do that with these big blue chip companies. And I think that's a serious flaw, because unless you can get to know the management, you are at the mercy of press releases and spin. They've got departments of experts to make you think that their business is doing well. Like anybody that went to visit Enron the week before they collapsed, I'm sure would have gotten a good snow job of how great the company was and what a sound investment it was. And everybody on Wall Street was saying it was a good investment and so forth. Had that been a small company and you've been able to visit it and talk to the employees and talk to the executives, you might have had a whole different picture. So I like small companies, and that's part of it. You have to take a look not only at the management, but the funding. Become a little bit of an expert on accounting. Remember I said that the greatest cause of failure of a business, especially startup businesses, is lack of funding. And so you need to really look at the company's funding, and if you can't evaluate whether they're funded correctly or not, you can at least get the advice of other people in that business or that industry. They're available. Consultants are available. You could even go to the competition if you wish and say, look, I'm considering investing in your competition. Boy, will they talk to you or not? They'll say, well, why do you want to do that? You say, well, it looks like a good company, don't you think so? And they say, no. Well, you know they're biased, of course, but you could say, well, what's wrong with their funding? And if there is anything wrong with their funding, the competition will know it, and they'll tell you. So things like that you ought to be willing to do, especially if you're putting a lot of your hard-earned money on the line. You've got to be willing and able to do that. In addition to the company or venture risk, well, I'm not through with that actually. You need to take a look at their product or their service and consider, is this a market that's growing or shrinking? You know, a few years after they invented the automobile, you probably still would have walked into a buggy whip manufacturing company and found them doing a brisk business. They're probably selling a lot of buggy whips. But had you known and been following the news that this thing called an automobile had been invented, you could have projected and said, well, wait a minute, this is going to replace buggies, and this company making buggy whips is going to be a dead dodo. And you would have been right. So that sort of thing still goes on today. You need to take a look at the product or the service, see does it fit what we expect the future to hold in the way of market demand. And then, of course, take a look at the competition. You can learn more from a venture, I believe, by studying the competition than by studying the venture itself. And you'd be surprised the information you can get from direct competitors. If there's anything wrong with the company, you'll find it from their competitors. And they'll give it to you free. All right. Political risk, market risk, all of that. Let's take a look at market risk. Well, I've already mentioned that in a way when I mentioned buggy whips. Certain markets are going up, certain markets are going down, so that's been covered. Let's move on. Political risk, very important. You know, if you had invested in any kind of a free enterprise venture in Venezuela a few years ago, it might have looked pretty good. But by now, all of the significant businesses have been nationalized, haven't they? And if you had been astute politically, you could have seen that coming, because you could have seen that the system went Marxist. And you know that that's always at the end of the line of a Marxist or just any collectivist system, actually. Yeah, but you could have seen it coming very quickly. So political risk includes the possibility of confiscation. It includes the monetary policy of the government, inflation, quote unquote. If you're dealing with a business or an investment that's going to be wiped out in a period of inflation, this is not the place to go today. If it depends on stable pricing, okay, but if you're in a political system where inflation is inevitable, then that's a red sign, and I'd say go away from it. So, and taxes and legal restrictions. You know, manufacturing companies in this country have been pretty well squeezed out of existence by restrictions, OSHA requirements, taxes, all of these sorts of things. Our companies have been forced out of our shores. Of course, some of them quite willingly. They've been willing to go offshore and find cheaper labor. But a lot of the loss of industry in this country has been caused by political risk. And again, it's not risk in a way because you can see it. You know what's coming. It's not really a risky thing at all. You say, this is going to happen. So you need to look at every venture in terms of its political risk. Now, I'd like to make a statement here that the risk-reward ratio is perhaps the most important thing to focus on when you're all done with this little analysis that I've been covering here. The risk-reward ratio, by its very title, implies that nothing is easy. It's all not a lot of risk or all total reward. It's usually a blend of the two. And your job, everyone's job, is to strike a balance between what is the potential reward and what is the potential risk. I wish I could give you a formula that if you plugged in the numbers here and multiplied by 6.4, and you come up with an answer over there,